Hello, my name is Aaron Wexler, and welcome to another episode of Within the Game. Let's go! Within the Game is all about how to treat your craft and your life like a game so that you can stay inspired, have more fun, and ultimately find fulfillment both in and out of your game. And thank you to the listeners and fans of the show. And if you would like to support the show, a great way to do that is to grab a copy of my book, The Inspired Athlete, as well as share this episode with anyone you think would benefit from it. Also, if you could give the channel a like and subscribe, those things really help out. Today's guest is the one and only Sarah Pavan. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Let's go. So after a very successful indoor career, Sarah became a dominant force in beach volleyball. An Olympian for Team Canada and a 2019 world champion, she has established herself as one of the best blockers in the world. In addition to winning the world championship, she has won 7 World Tour gold medals and 2 AVP Tour titles, including the Manhattan Open. She's also a bookworm, foodie, and anime enthusiast. Your IG is at Sarah_Pavan. Sarah, I'm really excited to have you here. We've competed against each other in practice on the beach, and I just love the way you work. So, as you know, the first question I like to start with is this idea of inspired living. So what is that idea? What does inspired living mean to you?
Oh my gosh, this is a great question. For me, inspired living is finding something that you're passionate about. And it will look different for everybody, but I think really dialing in something that you're passionate about and pursuing it wholeheartedly. I think a lot of people are very stagnant. I think a lot of people kind of just like go with the flow and let days and months and years pass. And I think being able to find that one thing, even if it is just one thing that brings you joy, and really pursuing it is what inspired living is.
Yes. I love that. I love the simplicity of that. And this is just a kind of a question that's coming to me. Like, why do you think a lot of people don't pursue that? Because it seems like when you say all that, it seems like, yeah, for sure. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like people just get into this rhythm of their lives and it's just so hard to shake things up.
Yeah.
My husband kind of calls it inertia. It's so hard to just get started at something. And I think it can be scary. I think it can be scary to put yourself out there and say, like, I'm really into this. I think a lot of people are very consumed with, what are other people going to think about this? What if I say that I want to do this and I fail?
Yeah.
What if I say that I really like this and I'm not even very good at it? And so people ask a lot of like what ifs instead of just being like, who cares? This is what I'm into. I'm going to own it. This is me. And it makes me happy to do it. So who cares what everybody else thinks?
100%. And I totally relate. I just told you I put out my music for the first time in my life. And I went through that fear for 20 plus years. 20 plus years of like, I'm not good enough, maybe, or am I really a musician? Because I've been an athlete my whole life. So like, how am I going to look, So I totally relate to that. I think a lot of people relate to that. And I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think for me, one way that I have learned to face that is to go right through it. I learned that from Laird Hamilton. I was asking him about how he faces fear as a big wave surfer. And he's like, I go right through it. Like, you face the fear. I think a lot of people like turn away, and I did that for a long time. But what do you say to someone who's like, who's hearing you and is like, yeah, I hear you, but like, how,
I mean, I'm somebody that always thinks like, what will my future self feel about this? And
Yeah.
so whenever I'm kind of on the fence about something or I'm unsure of the next step I should take, I think like in the future, if I look back on this moment, will I be so upset that I didn't take the leap?
Yeah.
And usually the answer is yes. Like what harm is there in trying? But like, I never want to look back on any decision I've made in my life and be like, oh, I wish I had done that instead. Um, so I
Yeah.
live my life just with the thought of like, I don't want to have any regrets. So if this is like something that's like in my head and it keeps coming back to me, like I need to go for it.
Mm.
Like, why not?
Okay, so that's awesome. That's a great place to ask you about your career right now, because I was listening to the Sandcast episode with Try and Travis. What's up? Shout out, guys. Those guys are awesome. And for any listeners, go check out that Sandcast episode, because you get really vulnerable with your career, and like how
Mhm.
people are asking you all the time, hey, are you done? Are you getting ready to retire? It's kind of a weird thing that everyone's so interested in, like, are you gonna be done?
Yeah,
But you get asked that a lot, right? So you just mentioned no regrets. Do you want to would you like to share like where you're at with your career and like
sure. Yeah. Um, I mean, at the time of the recording of the Sandcast, I, you know, had just kind of gotten out of a very, very short-term international partnership. Um, I had intended on pursuing the Paris Olympics with this person, and just like things did not feel right. And so I ended up like deciding that that was going to be the end of that. And so I was kind of sitting in this place for like a month and a half of like, is my career over? Like, this isn't the way I planned. I had intended to at least go into the until the Paris Olympics. Like, this isn't completely on my terms. And so I was just like grappling with all these thoughts of like, no, this is my career. Like, and I didn't necessarily get to choose the ending. And for me, that just felt really unfair just
mm,
because I've devoted so many years of my life to this sport. Like, if I'm going to leave, I want it to be on my terms. And
yeah.
so the easy choice was to just like call it a campaign and be like, you know what, I've had a really great international career. Like, I should just be grateful for the opportunities I've had and move on. But then I was thinking, like, if I look back in 20 years, like I'm still playing at a very high level. I think that there's so much more that I can give. I think there's still experiences that I want to have that I think I can. If I look back in 20 years, am I going to feel good about walking away right now? And the answer was no.
Right.
So I decided to give it, again, the pool of athletes in Canada to pursue high level beach volleyball is limited compared to other
Yeah.
countries. So that's like the added twist.
Right.
But I ultimately decided, I'm going to give it one more shot with a really young player who does not really have very much international experience. And I am going to give it everything I have. And if it works out, then that's amazing. And if it doesn't, I can walk away knowing that I've exhausted every option and that I get to choose how my career ends. And so I'm currently starting out again with a very young partner, and we're going to play a string of events here in the next few weeks.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for being a fan of the show. I really appreciate your support. And if you'd like to further support the podcast, please grab a copy of my book, The Inspired Athlete. The Inspired Athlete is all about my personal growth journey, my athletic journey, my spiritual journey, all combined into one. And really the idea is that the energy of the inspired athlete is within us all, and it's up to us to evoke that. And whether you consider yourself an athlete or a competitor or not, it's my belief that the energy of the inspired athlete is within us. Even if you just decide to take a deep breath and just move your body, that's the inspired athlete. So it would mean a lot if you could help support the book project as well as the podcast by grabbing a copy. Links to the Amazon paperback version as well as the Audible audiobook version are listed below in the description. Thank you very much for your support. Stay inspired, y'all. Let's go. Let's go. I love that mindset.
Yay.
And as a fellow training partner / fan, because I'm a fan, I'm going to encourage you to keep going and put your foot on the gas pedal and let's
Thank you.
go, right? Because you're dominating. You're a dominant force at the net. You like you said, you're still playing at a high level, and you're a champion, like, I work with kids and so I try to remind them that they're champions. And, even if they're not champions yet, I'm like, champions believe that they're champions before they become champions, right? Like, maybe that's a good place to ask you about champion mindset, because this is something I'm really curious about. Like, as a world champion, how do you cultivate that mindset?
I think it's like multifaceted. I think, some ideas that like come to mind immediately are, I think champions have a very distinct and never ending growth mindset.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
I think no matter who you are, what you've done on paper, what you have won, etc., there is always room for growth. I think as humans and as athletes, we always have to be willing to evolve. Um, and what works for somebody in one moment may not work in a month from now or a year from now. So I think champions are always looking to better themselves and evolve and grow like over time. I think in a sports, arena, I think champions truly believe that the game is not over until it's over.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I see people just give up when they get down X number of points. Like, this is an insurmountable obstacle at this point. But I think like real winners always believe they have a shot. No matter what the score is, they have that like self confidence and that self belief that like I can overcome this adversity and come out on top. So those two
Yes.
pop to mind immediately.
Yes. No, I just got the chills on that. That was awesome. Um, Carry that, like unpack that a little more about being intense, because I heard you talk about that on that Sandcast episode, like your intensity level, and where that comes from and how you sustain that.
I'm both loved and hated for that quality. I will call it a quality. Um, yeah, I think my intensity comes from that never ending belief that I will come out on top. Is that realistic in sports? Absolutely. You are not going to win every game that you play, but the intensity kind of fuels that intention of like, I am fighting to the death
Yeah.
for every point, for every set, etc. Um, and also, quite frankly, like part of sports, it's a physical battle, but I would say the majority of it is a mental battle, because when you're playing at a very high level, everybody is skilled and everybody is very good at what they do. But it's like the mental edge that like helps people either rise to the top or not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the intensity is like, it's to create an environment on the court of like, you're going to have to grind and be excellent if you want to beat me. But it's also an intensity of like holding myself and my teammate to a certain standard of, no, we're better than this. No, we can strive to be better, strive for more, that kind of accountability factor. So it's like multi-purposed. It
Hmm.
comes out in like passion and emotion. Um, but I think there are different ways that people can express it.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And I want to make this relatable too. So, for anyone listening who's, not a beach volleyball player or, considers themselves a champion, um, something that comes to my mind when Sarah is saying that is the idea of going all in,
Mhm.
right? Like, a champion in my mind goes all in on whatever that craft is, right?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, to get to the world championships and to win it, like, talk about going all in on that journey.
When you say that, it just like, it is scary
Yeah.
to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
it can be really scary to go all in, to voice that, to make your goals and aspirations and dreams known. Because once you put them out there, if you fail, like,
Yeah.
then people know.
Right.
But
Right.
I think part of going all in is like unapologetically putting it out there, and saying, this is what I'm about, this is who I am, this is what I want. I think there's an incredible amount of strength tied to that. Um, and so the same, like tying it into world championships, like going into that tournament, I can't tell, like I put it out there, I said it out loud that my intention and our team's intention was to win. Is that cocky? Is that arrogant? I don't think so. I think if you want to be a champion in whatever you do in life, you need to set your intentions and make them known, because otherwise, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And it's also serves as like an accountability factor of like, no, I said I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow through. Um, but we put it out there. We didn't go in ranked particularly well. We had a rough start to the season. But we said it like every day. And like we took it one game at a time. Every game we won, we're like, okay, we're one step closer. I remember the day before that we left for the arena for the final, we were about to leave the hotel room. And I said to my partner, I was like, when we come back into this room, we're going to be world champions.
Let's go.
And it's just like,
Let's go.
you have to have, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in what you're doing, why should anybody else believe in you? And, you know, people talk about like imposter syndrome and not like, sometimes you really do have to fake it until you get that like self-belief. But if you're not going to like believe what you're saying, why should anybody else?
Huge thank you to new sponsor of the show, Chico Bag. Chico Bag is your eco-friendly travel pack and shopping companion. I actually have my travel pack right here. I use it almost every day, and I love it. Love it for little day trips or going to the grocery store. It replaces hundreds of single-use plastic bags and fits in your pocket or purse. And with its stylish and durable design, you can take it anywhere. Chico Bag is a certified B Corp and donates 1% of sales to environmental causes. So join the Chico Bag revolution to reduce plastic waste and create a sustainable future. Visit chicobag.com and get 20% off your order as a Within the Game podcast listener using promo code Within the Game. Back to the show. I think that's manifesting 101 right there. I know that word's getting thrown out a lot right now, the idea of manifesting, but to speak it out like that before it happens. And, you know, I think that's a big part of this idea of champion mindset. So that's awesome, you know, and again, I think that's relatable to anyone, you know, in any industry, in any point in time. We can speak our desired outcome out before it happens, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about failure? You know, so you get to this peak, you know, you become a world champion, and then the Olympics happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you did not get the desired result. Walk us through your relationship with failure.
I think, you know, what I do as an athlete, it's tricky because our successes and our failures are so public.
Right.
You know, for a couple of years before the Olympics, I was very, very clear that my goal was to win the gold medal. And I said it, I kept saying it in any interview, in any, you know, media, anything I did. People knew that that was my intention for the Tokyo Olympics, and I wasn't okay with anything else. So, do I regret that? We came fifth. We
Yeah.
did not did not reach that goal. Do I regret saying those things? Absolutely not.
Right.
If I was to go back in time, I would say it again. I think finishing fifth at the Olympics was hard. It took me a very long time to come to terms with that. Um, I think the fact that I took it so hardly proves how much I cared, and I do not think that there's anything wrong with wanting something that badly and caring that much. Um,
Yeah.
so the more you want something, if you don't achieve it, the pain is so much greater.
Hmm.
Um, but I would much rather feel those feelings and feel so, so deeply than be ambivalent and protect myself.
Right.
There are so many times that like I haven't achieved what I've set out to do, and I would never consider it to be embarrassing, um, or because like if you want to be the best, you have to take big risks, and like putting things out there and saying things like that, it is a risk.
For sure.
Um, so yeah, it's hard. And I can't even tell you the number of critical, mean messages I got after the Olympics, um, about the result that we got. But at the end of the day, I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you about that I don't care part, because I actually think that's really healthy. It reminds me of no Fopo, no fear of other people's opinions. And I've heard you talk about
Mm.
this before. I would like you to explain that I don't care kind of mentality, because I hear what you're saying. It's like, I'm just gonna do me. I don't care about what you're gonna think about me or say about me, right? In a healthy
Yeah.
way, right? Can you expand on that a little bit?
I think nowadays it's even more prevalent. It's so easy for people to hide behind a computer screen or their
Yeah.
phone screen and just say whatever they want to people. And quite frankly, it's the people who aren't putting themselves out there and aren't going for things that are the ones saying those things. So, um, honestly, I really believe that at the end of the day, the only person that I need to answer to is me. And so I know what my morals and my values are. And I know that if I am living in accordance with my values every day, I can sleep well at night. I'm not here to make other people like me. I am not here to try to live out a narrative that make other people feel good. I know that if I stay true to who I am, I live in accordance to my values, and
That's it.
I have respect for others and integrity, that is all I can do. No matter what you do, whether you're successful, you're a winner, whatever, there will be people that sing your praises, and there will be people who criticize you.
Mhm.
So trying to act in a certain way to make people like you, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
You are never going to make every single person like you no matter what you do. So, I stopped trying to be that person a very, very long time ago. And if people like me, that's great. But the most important thing to me is that the people that I choose to surround myself like me.
Mhm.
And if I am not acting in a way that they think is appropriate, there's only a very small group whose opinion I care about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, it's so relatable, right? Even when I started this podcast, I was just thinking of that. Like when you start something new, there's a lot of people that come out there and like, criticize, right? It's so easy to
Mhm.
criticize, or like, not winning, let's criticize, right? Like, but right when you said that, what came to my mind was living your truth,
Mhm.
regardless of what anyone else, because no one else knows what your truth is. Only you know what your truth is. So that's why I said it's really healthy when you say I don't care, because you don't know me or my truth. Only I do, you know? And that's why I find you inspiring, because you do you. And it's like that's what you're gonna do. And I think that's awesome. And I want you to carry that forth into this idea of this definition of the inspired athlete, which is this idea that I've tried to bring forward, which to me, I'll just tell you what that is to me, and then I'll let you, define it for yourself. It's your true self. It's your true inner being. right? Like not the social media version, not the public version, you know, this whole idea of like whatever other people think of you, that's not what the inspired athlete is. The true Aaron Wexler, or the true Sarah Pavan, like the true person inside you, the athlete that wants to breathe and move and compete and go for it, you know, and not worry about the result, really. I mean, yeah, obviously trying to win and trying to be successful, but really just wants to be in the moment and wants to like thrive and have a great relationship with your surroundings and your body. To me, that's the inspired athlete. I know I rambled there, but I
No,
wrote a
I
whole,
love that.
you know, that's kind of the idea. So yeah, what does that kind of, how does that evoke your definition of the inspired athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you've just said. I think there's just something so beautiful in people being authentically themselves,
Yeah,
no matter what. And it's like, whether it's on social media, in person, in a public space, like the consistency of somebody who is just authentically them is so beautiful. And like bringing that into the inspired athlete discussion is just
yeah,
like, what you see, I am me.
yeah,
And I am a goal setter. I dream big. I work my ass off. I tell the truth. I'm intense. But like, it's not going to change day to day because that is me. And so I think just like putting all of that together and just like setting big goals and doing whatever it takes to like reach them, and not like qualifying it, just putting it all out there in an attempt to be the best version of yourself, I think is what it is.
yeah, for sure. I love that, but I want to almost challenge you there because I think it will change day to day. I think all we can do really is grow. I mean, we can go backwards, I guess, but grow and expand, right? Like I think that's part of the inspired athlete, is change. We're constantly seeking more growth and a better version of ourselves and a more expansive version of ourselves. I think that's change, right?
I think that's a big part of it, is just like openness to feedback,
Yeah,
openness to evolve. I do think growth is a huge part of it. Because as I said before, like what worked yesterday might not work a
right,
month from now.
right.
Um, so yeah, I really, really respect athletes who are willing to evolve, who are willing. I don't like when people put themselves above other people. I think like in a sport and team environment, we are all striving for the same thing. And so um nobody deserves anything. And I think that humility factor, um I really value humility. And so no matter who I'm practicing with or what I'm trying to accomplish that day, I am the same. I'm going to work just as hard. I'm going to communicate in the same
Gotcha.
way. I'm going to be open to feedback. Um, and so I really value that.
That makes sense. Yeah, that consistency, that consistent approach to your craft. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I really love that. I respect that. Um, I want to ask you about this idea of chasing peace that I heard you talk about. What does
Yeah.
that mean?
Oh my gosh, I am kind of a psycho in the sense that I um I am so self-critical when it comes to, well, anything really, but volleyball in particular is like, as a high level athlete, you're obviously like chasing or seeking perfection, but that is unattainable. But so in the process of that, I tend to like fixate on certain things that I need to get better at, or decision making things that might happen in the course of a match or a practice. And so I am hyper fixated on the things that I need to improve, and I am very quick to dismiss the things that I do well. Um, it's part of me trying to get better. I have big goals. So if I want to reach those, I need to fix up these things here. Keep the good things consistent. We don't need to talk about those, but like fix these problems. Um, and so any time that I am not winning a match or a tournament or whatever, I am like picking apart these certain things that I need to tweak or adjust or work on in practice next week. And the percentage of time that you actually win a tournament is so small. So I'm spending so much time just like analyzing and critiquing. And so it's only when I leave a tournament with a gold medal around my neck am I like, okay, give the brain a break. You did a good job. And so that is kind of where that concept came from, is like my brain and my critical thinking, like mindset kind of goes away when I win and
Mm.
I'm just at peace. So what I don't want to say I want to win. Of course I want to win. But what comes with winning is this like sense of calm of like you did a good job. And so I'm chasing kind of that sentiment because otherwise I'm being very critical.
Wow.
It's not
I,
healthy. I don't
well,
recommend it.
well, well, it's meticulous. And immediately when you're talking about that, I was thinking of Kobe Bryant, right? Like, he was my favorite athlete when I was growing up, and he would talk about watching game tape of his losses, which is really painful. I've watched game tape of my losses, and I just don't. I want to turn it off after like a couple
Lord.
minutes. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to relive that pain. But he would talk about how he would study the losses, like meticulously, study the footwork, study the situation, right? Is that
Mhm.
something that you do when you kind of pick apart, the losses, or something that you really need to work on? Do you really pick it apart on game tape like that?
Yes, I'm also kind of I'll say Rain Man. So like the I'm able to like remember like plays just like in my mind. And so even if I'm not I do spend a lot of time watching video, but even if I'm not doing that, it's almost just like I visualize the match and like
Mm.
play it back in my mind. Um I spend a lot of time doing that. I do it for practices too. But of course, I fixate on the parts that I don't like. I never just sit back and relax. I'm like, oh, let's think about all those good plays I made. No, it's usually the ones that didn't go well.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this. You mentioned visualization. I love this idea, and visualization is difficult in my experience. Um, it's hard because like the mind wants to jump all over the place. So let's talk about this. How specifically do you do visualization? Do you like sit before practice for like 10 minutes and like, visualize what your desired outcome is going to be? Do you visualize your specific body movements and decision making? Is it a combo? Yeah, take that question and just run with the visualization.
I find that I do it in a variety of situations. I would say, very much more on the introverted spectrum. So I do spend a lot of time in my own head, just naturally, and in self reflection. There's a variety of different things that I do. Like if I'm working on a specific skill that it might feel a little new, I will spend time just like visualizing myself doing it and like what it looks like and what it should feel like. Um, Obviously, we touched on the like post game going back over the things that maybe didn't go well and like thinking about those things. I'll also do it for things that haven't happened yet. So, like leading into the Olympics, for example, I would visualize match point of the gold medal match. I can't even tell you how many times I saw that in my mind and I knew how it was going to go and what was going to happen and what the celebration would feel like. And so it's not always like a critical thing or like an improvement. It's like things that I even want to happen that I can put myself in that situation and feel it happening. So yeah, there's different ways that I do it.
I think that's awesome because, you know, I talk about this in the book. Like, I think it's not, sometimes it doesn't work out, right? You
Mhm,
mentioned the gold medal, right? But you can paint the picture so many times that it actually almost becomes real
mhm.
in your mind first, right? And I think what happens in my experience with it, and I've also taught this, and I continue to teach this to kids too, is it becomes something that's desirable. Like, you actually want to visualize, right? You want to visualize it. You want to paint it. You're creating. It's part of being
Yeah.
creative, right? You're creating the desired outcome. You're creating what it, you mentioned feelings. Like, I want to ask you about EQ, like emotional intelligence, like really understanding, how things feel first. Because I think all of that goes into this idea of manifesting, which I'm really interested in. I love that. But thanks for going into the visualization, and maybe you could touch on a little bit of mindfulness. Do you do any breath work or meditation? Because meditation and visualization is a little different.
It is. Um, I want to say that yes, I do it, but it's like not conscious,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Like I don't necessarily set aside time to be like, okay, right now I'm going to sit here and devote 20 minutes to meditating. Like it's not a planned thing. I don't necessarily think about breath work. I will say that I am very in tune with my body. So for example, if I can feel that my heart rate is increasing, if I can feel that I'm getting a little tense, I will naturally just do some deep breath work to like recenter myself, to slow everything down. I find that I do it on the court a lot. Like if a game is really, really intense and I'm going back to serve receive, I will feel myself just like do a huge exhale and just like relax my body to get back on track. So yes, I do it, but it's not like a scheduled thing. It's more just like feeling how my body is during the day and doing what I need to do, and like tying into the visualization thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I would visualize the gold medal point of the Olympics, I got like a visceral reaction. Like I would get goosebumps on my arms. I could feel my heart rate increasing. I could physically feel the feelings that I was seeing through visualizing, um, which is like really cool. And for all the kids out there, when I was young and somebody told me to visualize, I laughed in their face and I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. I was
Yeah.
like, why would I do this? This makes no sense. Why would I sit here and pretend that I'm doing a volleyball game? Like, that's dumb. Fast forward to now, and I am doing it all the time. So I think the younger that you get started with it and make it a habit in your life, the more natural it becomes. So when you are going through good times or bad, it's just there for you.
Yeah. I'm really happy you said that. I just want to add this, like, you don't have to just visualize for a game. You can start
No.
visualizing for any aspect of your life. And there's a spiritual concept. I'm a spiritual person, and there's a spiritual concept it's called segment intending, where you could actually intend for the next segment of time, whatever activity you're doing, to go a certain way that you want it to go. So you can start to visualize, okay, this interview with Sarah is going to be amazing. It's going to be great. Like, I was doing that before this show, this recording started, and like, you can start to practice that. I'm going to hit every green light. When you start driving, you can have fun with it. I'm going to get the best parking spot. I'm going to get the best table at the restaurant. Like, it's called segment intending, and it's kind of funny, but once you practice it, you can make a game out of it. And you visualize, you're like, yep, that's the table I'm going to get right there. That's what I want, and
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of value in that, not just in sports, but in everyday life. And it actually ties into the next thing I want to ask you about, which is this idea of flow, which I love to talk about. And especially with high level athletes and champions. But the idea for flow for me is this idea of your relationship to the present moment, right? And when I find myself in flow, which is not often, and as athletes, it's not often, right? But every once in a while we can find ourselves there. And it's when the future doesn't matter or doesn't exist, and the past it just doesn't matter. You're not thinking about those things. You're so enthralled with your craft in the moment that you find yourself in this state of flow or in the zone. So I want to ask you about your experience with that, and bring up any specific matches or specific times or even practice even. So I want you to talk about that. And then I also want to ask you, is it something you can practice, or do you just find yourself there?
This is a very interesting question. I feel like I have very distinct opinions about this.
Okay.
Um, I will say that yes, I have found myself in that state at certain points. I I don't think it is something that you can necessarily chase or look for. I think I've seen it with like a lot of athletes is like they want to reach that flow state.
Yeah.
But it's like I am somebody that's of the belief of like as an athlete or in life or whatever, there are so many times that you're just uncomfortable and you have to find a way to make it work. That happens way more frequently than being in the zone where things you're just like not even thinking and everything's like going well, you're feeling your body. So I think if I like to train in a state where I am overcoming feeling terrible, or I am overcoming moments where I am not executing well. For me, if I can find a way to fight through the moments when I am not feeling well or playing well, or I am just like having a rough day, then if that is my standard, it is so much easier to just go with it when things are going your way. But if we're constantly looking to reach this flow state, I will say it has not happened to me very frequently in my career. I probably couldn't even tell you specific matches in my life where it has happened. I know there are matches where I've basically been unconscious and unstoppable, and I'm just like, I'm gonna go with this. But like it is so infrequent that to make that the goal is just, I feel personally like setting yourself up for disappointment. So if you can train yourself to overcome the moments that aren't going your way, that is probably going to happen way more frequently. And then the rest is just easy, I think.
Wow. No, that's cool. I really like the take on that. Um, yeah, like I was thinking when you were talking about that, I was thinking about training. Like, when we practice, it's kind of like normal, I'd say, to put yourself in a high stress environment,
Mhm.
right? Where it's hard to find the flow in a high stress environment. And a high stress, I mean like 18 all. Let's play to 3. You're like, oh man, I gotta win. I gotta win this next point. Or like, you're down by 5. All right, that's a drill. It's like, okay, I'm immediately stressed. I gotta like, you know, um, it's hard to find the flow in the stress moments, I think is what I'm hearing from you. And it's yeah. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, and I think like I've heard from numerous athletes like um it's I don't want to say an excuse, but just like, oh, I couldn't like get into that like
Yeah, yeah,
place.
yeah.
And it's like no matter what you're doing, if you hit that place, you're golden. You just ride that wave.
You ride it, yeah.
But if you can find a way to be good and consistent for the rest of the time, just imagine like what that can do for you. Cause like when you hit that place, go for it. You're unstoppable. But if let's make the goal to like be unstoppable when I'm not feeling my best. And then imagine how that shift can take you.
Okay, so how? Like positive self-talk, memory of like a memory of a goldfish on to the next play. Like, yeah, talk about the how part.
I will say personally, I am just very, very focused on the things that I can control. Um, what's going to happen next point? I don't know. I can't control it. What if this? What, like, the only things that are ever within my control are my effort, my communication, and my attitude,
Yeah.
the way I approach any given situation, point, etc. Those are the things that I have control over. When I'm in the moment, I am just get constantly like my self-talk is very process driven. In like if I'm on serve receive, I have a few key pointers that I always say in my own head. It has nothing to do with what that person is doing. It has to do with what my body needs to do to execute the skill in the right way. So if I am just playing the worst game of my life, not one time am I in my head being like, you really suck today. Oh my gosh, I hope she doesn't ace me this point. It's like, no, the way that I talk to myself is the same whether I'm playing the best I've ever played in my life or not. It's okay, be stopped on contact, stay low, contact the ball in front of you. Period. It doesn't change. And so I think just developing a consistent routine or a consistent way of self-talk that is very objective instead of feelings based um, is a good place to start. I
That's
don't know if that's makes
no,
any
I was
sense.
just gonna say that's awesome. But let's carry that to EQ now. Now let's talk about EQ, right? So we got that part, but what about the feelings? You know, how do you deal with the feelings and how do you manage those feels specifically? Let's talk about that world championship final because now you're surrounded
Mhm,
by thousands of people, right? You got that adrenaline pumping.
mhm. I think something that is so, so important, regardless of what you're doing, is vulnerability. I think there is something to be said about being completely honest with the people you're surrounding yourself with about where you're at in any given moment.
Hmm.
I do not think that there is any shame in asking for help. I do not think there's any shame in admitting where you're at mentally and like asking for that support. Um, so, for example, in the World Championship semifinal, we were winning the third set 14-10. And then all of a sudden, this girl went on a serving rampage. And before we knew it, it was 14-13. And my partner turned to me and she was like, I feel like I'm going to shit myself. I am so scared. She's like, please, 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 if the ball is there, can you please hit it on two? Probably not what somebody wants to say in that moment, but it's how she was feeling. She was very honest with me. And like being able to hear that, I was then able to give her the support in being like, no, we have been in this situation before. You have face serves way better than this. If it's there, sure, I'll take it, but I'm going to give you a great set and you're going to put it away.
Hmm.
If she hadn't said that to me, I would think that she's doing great.
Hmm.
I wouldn't know what she was thinking. So it might be a little counterintuitive, but it's like just getting it out there and sharing how you're feeling allows people to support you in the way that you need. But if you keep everything bundled up and you're trying to put on this front, like I've got it taken care of, that's you don't. And that's when things probably go sideways.
Wow, that's awesome. You come off as this confident champion. I mean, you are a confident champion, but you protrude that, and I think that's one of your strengths. I want to ask you if you could share some tips on how to build that up more for someone who doesn't have that.
Um I think a reason that I am so confident is because I train the way that I play.
Yeah.
Um, it is decades of just like being very consistent and purposeful, and I have intention with what I'm doing. And I think, it's really hard to build confidence unless you have been in certain situations multiple times and you've had a chance to fail and then come back and learn and try again. And you fail and you come back and you learn and you try again.
Yeah.
Um, you're not going to be perfect the first time you do something, but like not executing, coming back and finding yourself in the same position, if you get a different outcome that time, then it's like, okay, I've been here before. I did better this time. Okay, I've been in this situation before. I didn't score a match point that time, but this time I did. And so it's just putting yourself in the same situation and just constantly working for a different outcome or an improved outcome. Like, it takes time,
Yeah.
but you just have to like be thrown into the fire again and again and just like keep coming out and trying again next like it's it's a process.
Yeah. No, I love that. And we talked about fear before, but not being afraid, I mean, or if you are afraid to like look at it and go through it, right?
Yeah. And again, I always think like when a game is on the line, if the game does not go my way, do I want to walk away from the game knowing that I was aggressive, knowing that I like gave it everything I
Yeah.
had and that or do I want to be like, oh, but I like went easy because I was nervous? No, if I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna go down swinging.
Right.
And so I can handle that. So you have to know like what am I okay with? If this doesn't go my way, what can I live with? And just like once you're able to have that self-awareness, then you need to just like act accordingly.
Self-awareness, right? It's such a key part to this whole conversation and just life in general, right? Just got to be self-aware. You got to know who you are. And if you don't, you got to spend some time and find, I
Yes.
mean, I spent a lot of time, even recently in my life, just like really asking myself, like, who am I? And then answering, I am, dot,
Mhm.
dot, dot, right? And like filling that in and just having fun with that conversation with myself, of that self-awareness. And I just think it's key, and it actually creates more joy and happiness. And I'll speak for myself, for me, when I become more and more self-aware of who I am, then I become more and more self-aware in certain situations. Like, oh, this is what I need to
Mhm.
do. I need to go right instead of left. I need to say yes instead of no. Like my intuition gets stronger, and that yeah, I don't know. I just made me think of that.
I think it can be tough though, differentiating like who you are versus who you want to be perceived as. And so I
Totally.
think like you need to really be honest with yourself, or people in general need to be really honest with themselves of just like, is this who I want people to think I am? Is this how I want to be perceived? Or is this really truly me?
Yes, Sarah, and maybe that's the whole theme of our talk today, which is this not caring about what other people think, this no Fopo, which it's very prevalent. It's very prevalent. I think it's very relatable to everybody. And I think
Mhm.
that it's, it's worth talking about, it's worth thinking about, it's worth exploring,
Absolutely.
because there's nothing better than knowing your true self and not really worrying about anything else.
And just the freedom that you
Yeah.
feel when you just live in accordance to your values and who you are, and the freedom of living authentically and not trying to fit into this mold that people want you to be, it's incredible.
And comparison syndrome, right? You mentioned imposter syndrome before, but comparison syndrome is so I used to be a victim. I still kind of am, but I'm like becoming more aware of it, and I'm really letting that go. And it's like I don't need to compare. I can get inspired. I can get motivated by other
Mhm.
people and what they're doing, but there's no need to compare. And I caught myself for
It's
so many years, just recently, I caught myself like, oh man, I used to compare myself all the time. What was I thinking? Why was I doing that? And now I want to share the message of you don't need to do that.
no. And like for me, it's just like somebody else's success does not have any indication or bearing on your own.
Right. Right.
Other people can be successful, but that does not mean that you are unsuccessful. You have your own path, and so somebody else's wins do not diminish yours. They just look different. And in sports, like when I was younger, I would fall victim to the same thing of
Yep.
just like, oh, that team got this result. Why'd they finish? No, because this team won this tournament, it doesn't mean that I am not XYZ. Good for them.
Yeah.
My team is also good, but it doesn't diminish my success or anything that I have done or am trying to do. Um, so it's really, really tough now also with social media where people just put the highlights of their lives out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not seeing the bad stuff. Like you're seeing this person's highlight reel. So stop comparing. And then I've heard this so many times. Like, don't compare your normal life to this person's highlight reel. It's not fair.
Yeah, but we got to keep
Um,
saying it. We got to keep saying it to each other, and to, anyone listening. Like let's keep reminding ourselves and each other that that's not what we want to do. We want to get inspired and motivated and celebrate other people for sure. Celebrate wins. Those are great things, But you mentioned my path is my own path, which reminds me of Kelly Reeves. Shout out Kelly Reeves.
oh,
I think you played with her, didn't you?
I did in
Yeah.
Hamilton. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's awesome. She's been on the show and she said that too. And I just love that. And she's a champion. UCLA 2011. Let's go. Um, but yeah, our path is our path is our path, period. And that's the message. Um, Sarah, let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk about creativity. I'm a fan of your YouTube channel. I want you to
Oh
talk
my
about,
gosh.
yeah, it's really cool though. And I didn't know that was an aspect of you. I would love for you to talk about it. And also, if you want to talk about music or books, too. But yeah, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about some creativity.
Oh my gosh. So this whole thing came about like not on purpose. So I started a YouTube channel during the pandemic because I had so many kids reaching out to me. They were so sad that they couldn't play volleyball. And so they wanted ideas of like how to stay engaged in the sport. So I started out this channel to like help kids with volleyball through the pandemic. And then I started getting like countless comments from people of like, you need to check out this. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Turns out was an anime, is an anime about volleyball. So in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. It is not terrible. It is excellent. And so I started reacting to this volleyball anime. And now I liked anime when I was a kid, but like got out of it. But and now I am like back in this world. I think the most beautiful thing is the community that I've been able to create around anime. Um, they are so sweet. It's just like I really value like these people, most of whom I've never even met, but just like the community that has developed because of this. Now I'm like watching anime, I'm reacting to anime, I'm having Discord discussions with people about it. And like
Amazing.
going back to something that you were talking about before, it was just like if you like something, own it and like it. And so when it originally started, I was like, oh my gosh, is this a little embarrassing that I'm so into this? And then I was like, who cares? Who
Right.
cares? It brings me joy. I have a really cool community I've developed because of it. You can make fun of me if you want. I like it. So I'm all about that anime life now.
And you're finding success, right? I mean, I saw your
Yeah.
channel. I mean, it's got thousands. Some of those videos got tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of views, right? I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I like ended up I think I've got 50 some odd thousand subs on that channel.
Yeah.
And so, and
Yeah.
then so I started a second one. So like when the volleyball anime is done, I'll go back to my volleyball stuff on that channel. But I like created a second channel for that. Never in a million years did I think I would be a person with 2 YouTube channels, but here I am.
Well, I
So
think it's really cool, especially for, high level athletes to, start something creative. I was telling you before about my musical journey, my book writing journey. It's hard to do. It's hard to shift gears, but it's easy to follow joy, right? And it's
yes.
fun to follow joy. And again, going back on the theme of what we've been talking about here, if anyone wants to criticize, that's not our problem. That's
Yeah, go for it.
it's exactly right. So, and you have no control over that. So, I think it's great, and congratulations on your
Thanks.
success with that. And I'll definitely link those here when this is published. Do you want to plug
Cool.
them? Just do you want to whatever they're called? Do you want to share the
I
title?
kept it simple. Sarah Pavan volleyball,
Hmm.
and then Sarah Pavan anime is the second one.
Cool, cool, awesome. Yeah, I'll link those here.
Thank you.
As we wrap up, Sarah, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. This has been great. Um, I want you to just give a few tips for aspiring players, and this can be for youth, adult, just anyone who's trying to get a little better. What are some tips that just come to mind that you can share with them?
Number one, I would say just play.
Yeah,
Any opportunity you have, just go for it. I would say do not be scared of approaching the higher level athletes. Like I know that
yeah,
people tend to stay in their lane or the lane that they think they belong in as when it comes to beach volleyball, but it's like, you know what? If you want to get better, approach somebody that you think is better than you and ask if you can practice with them one day. That's how when I was a kid, I would ask older girls to practice all the time indoor. um, there's no harm in asking, and I would just say like be unapologetic in your goals. If you
mm,
have goals, put it out there and go for it. If you're not at that level right now, that's okay, but just like keep working and don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do.
mic drop. That was a good sound clip right there.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it was great. I want to ask you, well, actually, I want to respond to that real quick. Asking has changed my life. When I learned how to be a good asker, I guess is the
yeah.
is the term. And just to explore curiosity, right? Like to be curious about stuff, or even like I know you're talking about, asking people to play, but even being curious in life,
Mhm.
I would offer that. Just to, like, this podcast has changed my life to be able to ask all these amazing people like yourself questions and to open up your mind. It just creates more expansion and more opportunities and more, just the idea of more is really cool. So I couldn't agree more that asking great questions too. Like asking is a skill. It's
And
something I
people
want.
are very open to share.
Yes.
Like, I know it
Yes.
can be intimidating, but like people are so receptive
Yeah.
to helping or answering questions or whatever if you just put yourself out there. But so many times we put up walls because we think that we can't approach certain people. But it's like people are much more open to sharing than we think.
Totally. Totally. Sarah, fulfillment. What does fulfillment mean to you?
Man, heavy hitters. Wow. I guess I would say fulfillment is understanding what your needs are individually and making sure that those needs are being met. And it doesn't have to be from one thing, and I hope it's not from one person, but like surrounding yourselves with practices, interests, and people that meet your individual needs.
Wow. I like that a lot. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. That was a really tough question, and I think I just blacked out when I answered that, but I really do believe that. Yes, I think you can't rely on any one thing or one person
Yeah.
to meet all of your needs because that's just too much pressure to put on them. So I think like having a mix that like again, self-awareness, understanding what you need, and then surrounding yourself with those things is really important.
Wow. Sarah, this conversation's been awesome. I mean, wow, what a great one. It's just so great to get to know you after competing against you. And I want to get redemption too. I want to get back out there. So Ty
Let me know
Tramley,
when I'm ready.
yeah, Ty Tramley, if you're listening, let's go get him again. How can people best support you, Sarah?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, just like I love when people come up and just say hi at like AVP events or international events. Like just knowing that people are out there watching is so cool. But if you want to watch some anime with me, you can sub to my YouTube channels or follow me on Instagram. I'm not the queen of posting, but I do every now and then.
Cool. And I'll link all that stuff here. I really appreciate you for coming on the show and being vulnerable and authentic and opening up. And so thank you very much. It's been great.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a really good time.
Yeah. And thank you to the listener. If you've been with us this far, I appreciate you. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And peace and blessings, everybody. Stay inspired.